drought has been declared in parts of Wales, and millions of people across the rest of the UK are now banned from using their hose pipes. Thames Water's the latest company imposing a ban. This month looks like it will be the driest on record for nearly 200 years. Some areas of the country might get some rain this weekend, but that's unlikely to make much of a difference. We can speak to Dr Jess Neumann, Professor of Hydrology at the University of Reading. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Calum. Hi.
It's good to speak to you. What is the exact definition of a drought for us in the UK?
So we don't have one standard definition, but what we're looking at here, and this is what Wales have done yesterday, is they have said the prolonged lack of rainfall and substantial lack of rainfall is now having environmental impacts. So our rivers are very low. That's having a knock-on impact to wildlife. It's also having a knock-on impact potentially to public water supply as well, hence why we're seeing these hosepipe bans.
Yeah. I always feel, Jess, like a hosepipe ban is normal people being punished for the failures of water companies, and perhaps I'm just being too politically spiky about that. But I also think how much water flows through our hose pipes every day. I mean, if I'm putting a couple of litres on my plants every night, then it can't be that much when it's all combined, is it?
Well, I think what you're feeling there is very, very typical of how a lot of people are feeling as well, that they're being unfairly penalised, essentially for decades of mismanagement by water companies. It was a very wet winter, so why has that water not been stored? But in terms of hose pipes, a hose pipe running for about an hour will use 1,000 litres. That's well beyond what you would use normally throughout the day in your house. And if you think about a watering can, that's maybe 5 to 10 litres. That does a couple of plants. So hose pipes do use a lot more than a couple of litres, unfortunately.
Wow, I had no idea. It's 1,000 litres per hour if a hose pipe's running. Wow, that is quite something. So, when it comes to resolving this, what do we? Is it simply waiting for a downpour of rain? How long does a hose pipe ban take to sort of make up the difference, I suppose, at a time like this?
So the good thing about hosepipe bans is they do, assuming you have public compliance, start working immediately. And depending on how many people get behind a hosepipe ban, you can expect to see about 3 to 10% of water saved per day. So we are using a lot of water through hosepipes. And largely that's because it's very hot and dry and our lovely gardens are suffering as a result of that. In terms of how long it's going to take to come out and be sort of removed, that's going to depend on individual areas. It's also going to just depend on whether we actually get any rain. And at the moment, there's very little in the forecast.
Yeah. In terms of our sort of overall status when it comes to water, when it comes to reservoirs, when it comes to what you were mentioning there, sort of storing up water when it is available, are we good or bad at that?
We're fairly terrible at that. The water companies have been somewhat caught sleeping at the wheel, and this is something we've been saying particularly since 2020 onwards. We had that very hot weather in 2022. We've had multiple hosepipe bans and heat waves since then, and the government is now fast-tracking the building of reservoirs. We're looking at water recycling, other ways of managing our water. But you're right, we shouldn't be in this situation, and again, it does point the finger towards water companies to some extent about where they've been investing their money.
Yeah, and it's something we're going to have to get used to, I suppose, Jess, is the other thing. You know, it's not uncommon already for hosepipe bans, but surely we have to become a bit more resilient in the years to come.
Yes, we do, and it's going to take quite a lot of input as well from, everyday people like you and me. So just being mindful of water use, turning the tap off when you're brushing your teeth, taking a shorter shower. They all sound like really small things, but if everybody does them, that does keep water in the system, and particularly in our sort of rivers and lakes, where hopefully we wouldn't have to be abstracting so much to supply everybody, and that's much better for the environment and wildlife as well.
Yeah. Jess, it's really good to speak to you. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
That's Dr Jess Neumann, Professor of Hydrology at the University of Reading. I'm not sure what you think of hosepipe bans, but Alan gets in touch saying, I have a vegetable patch currently growing beans, carrots, sweet corn, etc. However, it's about 30 metres from the garden tap. I'm in my late 70s. I can't carry full watering cans that distance, and I will add, you'd have to go back and forth a bunch of times if you've got a patch with all that sort of stuff going on. Alan asks, should I allow everything to die, or should I defy the hosepipe ban? Well, I'm not going to tell you what to do, and you do risk fines and things if you defy the hosepipe ban, as you're aware. But that's the dilemma, isn't it? That's the problem that people have, is you just have to watch the garden go to rack and ruin while water companies' pipes leak all over the place and you're not allowed to use your hose pipe.
Marcus says, don't you see the irony? You've just argued for more oil and gas and then have an item on drought in the UK. This is the consequence of climate change. Those denying it are irresponsible in the extreme.
Yeah, and water company leakage is huge. You know, somebody suggests here, we'll try and get the numbers actually on this. Because the amount of water that is wasted, frankly, by water companies not having appropriate infrastructure is utterly astonishing. In fact, there was reporting just a few days ago, and this comes from Greenpeace UK, says 2.87 billion litres are lost daily. Water companies wasting 5 times more water through leaky pipes than even a nationwide hosepipe ban could save, according to Greenpeace UK. But I mean, those numbers are terrifying, aren't they? And so that's why it feels like normal people who are trying to keep their beans and their corn growing are being punished when water companies are letting us down.
New secret court documents obtained by the Clean Water campaigner Peter Hammond have revealed that 9 in 10 sewage spills by water firms in the UK are possibly illegal. The new analysis suggests the spills were classified under emergency relief but took place outside periods that would fit that definition. James Wallace is the chief executive of the River Action Campaign. Hello to you, James.
Hello, John. Nice to see you again.
Good to have you here on the show, James. But we now have the former chief executive of Southern Water and others there facing prosecution for faking data when it comes to sewage. Is this a breakthrough, do you think, James, in the pursuit of unlawful pollution and wrongdoing, which they deny, by the way?
Well, it's funny, I was just talking to Sally in Hampshire, who's a customer of Southern Water, and outraged, as you can imagine, with the news that was brought out in the past few days relating to this effectively conspiracy to defraud the regulator. And it's good news to see the Environment Agency were found favour with the court just now, and that they are allowed to prosecute the 7 individuals, 4 of which are executives, and as you mentioned, including the ex-chief executive of Southern Water. And this could actually lead to jail sentences. They've had a good licking and they need to be seen that way. They need to be treated firmly and robustly by the law. And unfortunately, as Professor Peter Hammond, who's a very highly respected scientist and campaigner for the Windrush Against Sewage Pollution Group, and has done research nationally, his figures demonstrate that we can't actually trust the data. Now, of course, some of this is historic data, but a lot of this goes on today, right now, where we're being told that the government, the regulator rather, is not monitoring independently. We still have operator self-monitoring. This is meant to be phased out, but not yet. And it means that the data we receive cannot necessarily be trusted. And as Professor Hammond has demonstrated, this means that, as you say, up to about 86% precisely, according to him, of the times that sewage is released, it could be illegal. It's during dry or not wet weather. That is very worrying for Sally in Hampshire and James in Wiltshire.
Right, and to you, and James, to you, your researches would suggest, certainly to you, and you would argue, I guess, that we're looking at breaches of the rules when it comes to the handling of data, when it comes to spills. All that we've seen so far may just be scratching the surface.
Yeah. I mean, this is the great shock of it all. Well, I say it's a shock. It's not a surprise. It is shocking, but it's not a surprise. And it has been going on for a long time. I think we're seeing some signs from the government that we might be getting some action at last. Of course, we have the Clean Water Bill that is meant to be going through this year. Whether it will under the new government, I don't know, and I hope so very much. But is it going to give the regulator back its teeth, John? Is it going to see enough reform and quickly enough to stop this deluge of pollution, and to make sure there's a shockwave across the bowels of water companies and they stop this illegal behaviour and they're made to invest? And only then, only when that investment is made, will we see change. And I'd quickly like to add, if I may, that none of this is going to make any difference as long as water companies are run for private benefit. We have a situation where for many, many years, the water companies have been privatised, and we need to see a change. And that needs to start with Andy Burnham and his new government putting Thames Water into special administration, writing off all that junk debt, and then refinancing it and owning it for public benefit and for environmental protection.
Well, we will learn more about Andy Burnham's thinking on that, and so many things before too long, I imagine. James Wallace, good to have you on the programme.